I think we have a good group of folks on the line, so let's get started. Thank you so much for joining this training webinar. My name is Casey Troy Ribnick, and I'm your staff contact for Head to the Hill. And we're so glad you're joining us for Head to the Hill and representing the brain tumor community in your state on Capitol Hill. A couple housekeeping items when I just mentioned muting the line. We'll keep everyone muted during the training webinar just to minimize background noise and make sure we can all hear the information. And if you have any questions, please feel free to chat them at any time. Lainey Titus Samant is going to chat right now to let you know where that feature is on your screen. And you can do that at any time and we'll go through and answer the questions. So I see Lainey just chatted. So there should be a blinking orange box on your screen that will show you where you can send your chats, and you can send them to the whole group or directly to Lainey, who will answer our questions at the end of the webinar. We're also recording this training, so you can refer to it again later, and we'll also send it to folks who can't attend today's training live. So like I said, my name is Casey Troy Ribnick. I'm the Research and Advocacy Manager at National Brain Tumor Society, and I work with grassroots advocacy. Lainey Titus Samant is our Director of Advocacy. She manages our advocacy program. And Lisa Peabody is our Public Policy Associate. She builds relationships in DC with our congressional offices. So during our call today, we'll review logistics for the event. However, we also wanted to discuss the overall event and what you can expect to experience. Anyone who has attended Head to the Hill in the past can provide a lot of words to describe the event: inspiring, uplifting, emotional, motivating. You'll all be traveling to Washington, D.C. to speak with members of Congress and their staff about something deeply personal, your brain tumor journey and the journey of your loved ones. One of our veteran Head to the Hill advocates from Ohio gave this advice to first-time participants: "This experience will be very emotional. I cry every year, but comforting and empowering as well. You will feel understood. You'll make wonderful friends and feel a sense of connection. Embrace it." Her advice to embrace it is perfect. You may feel so proud and empowered one moment and shed some tears while relating your story to your member of Congress in the next moment. As we said, this is all deeply personal, and it's okay to get emotional. So you've already made a great choice when you registered to attend Head to the Hill. Half of advocacy is just showing up. You are working to change things for the brain tumor community in your state and district, and this is extremely important and valuable work. Congress needs to hear about what matters most to patients, care partners, family, and friends. If you listen to members of Congress or any elected official offer their support or opposition to a bill or law, you'll almost always hear them share a story about one of their constituents, someone living in their state who will be affected by that bill or law. You and your stories are what make these issues come alive for the members of Congress and their staff, and we can't have the same impact on them by just bringing in facts or statistics. They need to hear your voice and why these matters are important to you. We'll talk more about telling your story in a few minutes so you can prepare between now and Head to the Hill, and also during the training day on Monday, May 7th. We'll also provide you with more tools and time to practice so you are confident and comfortable when you walk into your meetings. So now I'd like to welcome Lisa Peabody to talk about what is the ask.
Thank you, Casey. Casey did a great job of explaining how important your story is. I see your story as an opportunity to connect, to make a personal connection with members so that they remember you and that they are sympathetic to the need of your story in the brain tumor community. But we want to do more than just bring our story to Congress for an awareness piece, we also want Congress to walk away with an action item. We want them to respond to our story. We want to your story. We want them to respond to you with some kind of ask. We call it the ask. And so when you come to Head to the Hill in May, our ask will be focused on increasing medical research funding. So if you didn't know, the government has a large bucket of money that they invest in medical research funding and in brain tumor research. That bucket is housed in a place called the National Institutes of Health, and that's the program that does medical research funding for brain tumors. Also within the National Cancer Institute. So your tax money, the money that you're giving to Congress as part of your taxes, is helping to fund brain tumor research, which is great. It makes you such a valuable voice in the decision making in the government. NIH and NCI are the largest funders of brain tumor research. So it's important to us that that medical research continue to be funded at a robust level. Another place that we find medical research funding and brain tumor research is in the Department of Defense, which is kind of an unlikely place. But we'll be also making sure that we tell our member in May that we want that money also to be robustly funded. We have a second ask of our members in May. The National Brain Tumor Society has been intimately involved in a piece of legislation called the Childhood Cancer STAR Act. A whole group of pediatric cancer groups, including the National Brain Tumor Society, sort of came together and said, how can we, as a huge community of pediatric cancer, how can we impact the government so that we can move treatment along further? And they came up with these pieces of a larger piece of legislation called the STAR Act. It is the most comprehensive pediatric cancer bill that's ever moved through Congress, and we're really proud of it. We've been working on it about 3 years. It has many parts to it, so just going to focus on 2 areas right now. And at the training day, you'll learn more specifically what the bill does. But one piece is that it grows a collection of information that the government's going to house for researchers that on pediatric cancer tumors, and collects and organizes so that is accessible to researchers across the country. Another piece is that it enhances the collection of information that's collected on treatments for survivors. We're having more pediatric cancer survivors, and they are coming with some with long-term health issues sometimes. And so this is a database that's going to help collect information on how those side effects are being treated. So that's just a snapshot of what STAR does for us in the pediatric side of brain tumors. So we have our asks, but it's also kind of important to know what's happening in general in Congress when we show up in May. What's on their plate? What are they thinking about? And this is a really opportune time to be meeting with members. If you've been following the news, there's a lot of interest in health-related policy issues right now. The Congress is working on opioid addiction. It's working on drug pricing. It's working on insurance. And so we're in a good place to share our story about, and share your story about brain tumors, because they are interested in the health of the country right now. So we're poised for really nice success. Another great thing that just happened this year in 2018, every year we advocate for increased funding for NIH and NCI. And this year, Congress gave us a big boost. It gave us a $3 billion increase in NIH. And, that's a product of all of the advocacy that you guys have been doing and following up on the action alerts from Casey. So they're in a place, your member has been in a place where it's really bipartisan and unified support of increased medical research funding. So when we come in and for that ask, we're stepping into a place that's already, poised for a good position. The other good thing that's happening in Congress is they are trying to get back to a good process of making sure they complete the budget on time. And so they pushed ahead and they've already created what they call the budget caps, or how much the government is going to spend for fiscal year 2019. So when we go in, we'll be talking about 2019, and it's perfect time while they are starting to organize, and they call it appropriate, where funds and how funds are going to be spent. And so we'll be able to help direct our member how we want funds to be spent, how we want them on the DoD funding. And finally, the STAR Act has really been moving along. And so this Congress, the STAR Act passed the Senate. So if you think back to the process of how a bill moves through the the legislative process, there's a version in the House, and then there's a version in the Senate, and the president also has to agree on those versions. So we have a House version, a Senate version. They come together to make one final version, and then the president signs off on it. So right now, the Senate version has already passed. So we've made a really large step in there. And House version, they have 362 co-sponsors in the House. And a co-sponsor means that a member has publicly signed on to agree to support the bill. There's only 435 total members in the House. So we have 362 members who have signed on to support the STAR bill. So again, we're in a really good place. And exactly what our ask will be, we'll have to wait and see where STAR is in May when we have our meeting. Finally, you might be thinking, okay, so I'm gonna meet with my member, but I don't exactly remember how to find who my member is or how many members I have. I'm just trying to remember all that. So let me remind you, in your state, in our 50 states, every state is allowed 2 senators. So everyone on the call has 2 senators if you live in a state. And then there are, within each state, based on your population, there's districts. So a really big state has many districts, like California, which has a high population and is also a large state. There's 53 districts, but then a smaller state with fewer population, like New Hampshire, has 2 districts. So you'll have to take a look at your at this website so you can plug in your address and find out what district you're in and who is your representative in that district. So there's 1 person in a House, your representative, and 2 senators in a Senate. And so here's a little snapshot of the websites where you can actually go to and find your members. If you look at the top one, that's for your representative, and that orange arrow points to look up, and you'll be able to enter your zip code to start, and then sometimes it wants your address too. And the one on the bottom is for the Senate, for your 2 senators, and right there, the orange arrow there, you can also add your address to look those up. But bigger than learning who they are, it's also an opportunity to jump onto their website. Once you find out who they are, this page will link to them. You'll see there'll be a place where you can click on their website and read about them, learn about them. You know, do they live in your neighborhood? Do they have children? Are they interested in, is their health background in healthcare? Who are they, and what do they care about? And I think that, you know, like you would do for any meeting, kind of knowing a little bit about your member and his interests or her interests will set you'll be more confident when you walk into the room. So, you know, finally, to learn even more about this medical research funding that I talked about, and more about the Childhood Cancer STAR Act, Casey's going to be sending you a follow-up email, and in that will be links to what we call our policy briefs. So a lot of detail about the medical research funding will be in there, a lot of more detail about the Childhood Cancer STAR Act. We also did a really great web training about 2 weeks ago with a lot of detail about how Congress funding and the process for creating a budget and appropriating the amounts to all the different committees. And you can take a look at that web training. Again, Casey's going to send that when she does this follow-up from this webinar. So I'm going to turn it over now to Lainey Titus Summit, and she's going to talk even more about how to be prepared for Head to the Hill. Lainey, go ahead. It's all yours.
Thanks, Lisa. So as Lisa and Casey were saying, that we do have these policy issues, but really the most important reason you're coming to Head to the Hill is because you have a story that's important for your members of Congress to hear, and relating that story to why these policy issues are important for the brain tumor community. So you have that unique perspective, and that's what's so key to coming and meeting with your members of Congress. So in the next couple of slides, I'll go over practicing your story, as well as completing the story bank form we'll provide, that will allow you to have a hard copy of your story to bring with you to your meetings. So some key parts of your story you're going to want to think about, and I think a lot of people who come to Head to the Hill for the first time, you may never have told your story in the way that we're thinking about your story. For example, we're talking about of getting it down to really 2 or 3 minutes. That means you're going to be part of a larger meeting. You might not have a ton of time if the members of Congress are there and they have other events to get to. So really getting it down to 2 or 3 minutes, and you may not be used to telling it in that way. Some of you are probably very familiar with talking about your story a lot. Other people just are kind of around a lot of people that know what's going on all the time and are living it with you. So you may have never kind of told it in this format. So some key things to think about when you're crafting your story. And again, as Casey said, we're going to spend a lot more time on this during Head to the Hill, but it's just good to give you this primer so that you can think about this in the coming weeks. Obviously, your name and your city and town. The city and town is actually really important when speaking to members of Congress and their staff, because either if they're your U.S. Senator that covers your whole state, or if you're from their district, which is a smaller part of the state, it's going to be a quick identifying feature that reminds, they're going to be familiar with that city or town and already make that personal connection with you because of that. And then you're going to want to touch on your brain tumor experience, of course. So whether it's you who has a brain tumor, or you have or had a family or friend who had a brain tumor, you're going to want to share who that was and what happened, and when they were diagnosed or when you were diagnosed. And another key part that we think is helpful with members of Congress and their staff is using details to connect with the listener. So for example, if you were diagnosed on the first, you had your first day of a new job and you started having headaches, putting little details like that. I had just gotten married. I was commuting to work when, I had a seizure. Different things like that someone can imagine that you are a real person with a life going on when all of this happens, instead of just, this kind of situation happened to me in a bubble. It really connects them. Everyone can remember their first day of work or can imagine their own commute to work. Little things like that might connect you with the listener. And then sometimes we find explaining a challenge faced can be a good way to connect the story as well, and maybe also help relate that to the policy issues we're discussing. So for example, if you had a loved one who didn't respond to the standard treatment for their brain tumor and had to explore different options, that might fall into why we would need more medical research funding to therefore have more brain tumor research so that there are more treatment options available. So maybe thinking about some challenge faced that might possibly relate to the policy issue, or that will just make the experience more real to a listener who's listening to your story. And again, relating it to the policy issues, that's helpful and something to think about. Obviously, if you've been someone who's been affected by a pediatric brain tumor or have a loved one who has been, then the Childhood Cancer STAR Act would probably make sense to relate your story to. Anything else can really relate to the need for more brain tumor research, because really everyone would benefit if there were more treatment options, more research for brain tumors. So a few tips you can think of in the coming weeks as you prepare your story. And once again, don't worry too much because we will continue to practice this on the training day. But in the coming weeks, practicing is important. just having that muscle memory of telling the story, fine tuning it. You can do this with family or friends at home. You can do this by yourself if you're in the car commuting on the way to work. Just try and remember to tell it over and over so that you become more comfortable and figure out what the key points are that you want to stress. Another point is, don't worry if you become emotional. Again, as Casey said, we have lobbyists that can go in and meet with these members of Congress and their staff, and they can relay all of the facts and figures we have about brain tumors, why more research funding is needed, why we need more services for survivors through the Childhood Cancer Star Act, or more research for survivors. But what we don't have is the ability to have those personal stories from their constituents in their district. So if you become emotional while you're telling the story, it's okay. You're talking about something that's deeply personal. It's something that's happened to you or a loved one. It's our health or our loved one's health. And so don't worry, you're not a professional, polished lobbyist, and that's okay. And that's part of why you're there, because you are a person in their district telling this story. So that kind of leads to the next point of just memorizing the core story and really figuring out the key points you want to talk about, so that if you do become emotional and can't go further into it with some of the more personal or emotional details, then that's okay. And also, if time is really limited for some meetings, then you can just really pull out that core story. And then if more time allows, or if you do feel comfortable, I've been in some meetings where someone starts to tell a story and then they feel emotional. Sometimes they'll come back and at the end of the meeting share the rest of the story. So that's something that can happen at times as well. And then again, timing yourself. The stories really do need to be down to 2 to 3 minutes, because we do have other members attending Head to the Hill, other people attending who will also be sharing stories. But also, again, those members of Congress or their staff might have limited time for the meeting. So really getting that down to 2 to 3 minutes. And sometimes they will ask you to expand more later, but just trying to have that core story down to 2 to 3 minutes. And finally, deciding how to relate to the policy issues, reading those issue briefs we'll send, maybe watching the web training on medical research funding to think about how your story can connect to those policy issues. So something that we used last year was the story bank tool through Soapbox Consulting. So if anyone has attended Head to the Hill before, you'll recognize the name Soapbox Consulting. They're the company that schedules all of our congressional meetings for us. And about 2 weeks before Head to the Hill, you'll get an email from them with all of the details on preliminary schedule for the day on Tuesday, May 8th. That likely will change, but the other key piece of that email will be, it will give you a way to log in to their mobile tool. And then when you log into the mobile tool, you'll be able to go in and answer 4 questions we've provided, which will help you tell your story. And that will be created into a document that Soapbox will print out for us, and you can bring with you to your meetings with members of Congress. Just a note on this, we did use this last year. It was the first year Soapbox had created it, and there were definitely some hiccups with it, and we recognize that. But over the past year, we've worked extensively with Soapbox to try and figure out what went wrong and how to fix it. So we're really excited this year that we have the chance to do it again, and a lot of those issues that we ran into last year have been fixed. So we're really excited about the possibility of using it again this year. And one of the things you can do is, this year you can check the document after completing the questions, which I think will also get rid of any issues we had last year, like things didn't print out exactly the way people were expecting. So this, when you get that email from Soapbox, you'll be able to log in either on a mobile device or on your computer. And you'll see here, this is what it will look like once you log in. And the Soapbox Story Bank tool is right there where that green circle is. There's other things as well that you'll be able to access through that tool. But if you click on that Soapbox Story Bank tool, it will bring you to this form on the right. And this is where you'll be able to fill things out and answer and kind of tell your story through these questions. So again, like I said, it will give you the option to email the completed document to yourself or print it after filling it out. We highly recommend doing that because then you can double check, does the picture look okay? Does everything, do all of the questions show up okay? Does it look really short and I should expand on it a bit more? It will just give you a sense of what it will actually look like on the day of your visit so that you can make any changes you want to make from home before getting to Head to the Hill. So this is just an example of what mine looked like last year. And again, I didn't put too much in the questions, but you can fill it out a little bit more. But it will have your name, it will have the picture of your loved one that you'll put in there. It will have your home address, which is important for the members of Congress, again, recognizing that you're a constituent in their district. It will say who your senators and House members are. And then it will have the answers to all of your questions that you filled out. So it will be a really great way to be able to leave a piece of your story behind. And you know, if you're from a state with a lot of people, not all of you may get to tell your story. So having that concrete piece of paper there will be great. Even if you have told your story, then it's just a good reminder for the staff member or their member of Congress about your personal connection. Okay, so that's a bit about telling your story. Now, actual logistical preparations for Head to the Hill. So Casey will talk through in a minute about all of the different days and what exactly is going to happen on those days. But this year we're starting out on Sunday night with our welcome reception and the CERN Ependymoma Awareness Day and Butterfly Release. So for that event, it's a reception in the evening, so we recommend business casual attire. Monday is our training day at the Hilton Crystal City. So casual or business casual attire is fine for that. Again, this is in a hotel conference room, ballroom. So those do tend to get a little cooler for anyone that gets cold in those situations. And then Tuesday during Head to the Hill, business or business casual attire with the t-shirt provided. So this year, our t-shirts will be a blue color similar to the blue in our logo, if you take a look at that. And that's what we will be providing for the t-shirt, so you can make sure to plan your outfit around that. And then when we asked our veteran Head to the Hill participants on Facebook, in the Facebook group, about what the most important thing to know is, they all said to wear comfortable walking shoes. So Capitol Hill, it has some big buildings with marble hallways that can really do a number on your feet if you're there all day. So either just wearing comfortable shoes for the whole day, or a lot of people will wear shoes to walk between meetings and then change shoes before you go into the meeting. Either one is fine, but making sure comfort is going to be key. And we have our Pennsylvania advocates here who are modeling for us what to wear on Tuesday of Head to the Hill. So you can see a lot of them wore the t-shirt, some over a dress shirt, others under a blazer or under a sweater, and others didn't wear it at all. So that's just a good example of what some of our advocates will wear on the day of Head to the Hill, of the congressional meeting day. And we always mention that in May in DC, you kind of never know what the weather will be. Sometimes it will be 90 degrees and sunny. Other times it will be cooler or raining. So sticking an umbrella or light raincoat in your bag is never a bad idea. I think if everyone does that, it won't rain. So don't forget that umbrella. Cell phone and power cord. We do have, Casey will talk in a few minutes about this, but we do have space on Capitol Hill to go between meetings where we have power outlets. So bringing your power cord to charge your cell phone. A lot of times on Capitol Hill, you might get a call from Soapbox with a change for a meeting, or you might be accessing their mobile device, their mobile website, or just keeping track of other advocates throughout the day with your cell phone. So making sure to bring that power cord in case you need to charge it, because batteries do get drained during the event on Tuesday. And then if you choose not to use the Story Bank tool, then you can bring photos of loved ones with you. So this is sort of the what you don't need to bring page. We're going to provide you with all of the materials you'll need for your meetings on Tuesday. So we'll have folders for each congressional meeting, and that will have the issue briefs necessary to talk about each of the different policy asks. We'll provide you with the t-shirts. We'll have folders to give you on Monday that have all of the training materials, some like an advocacy talking points cheat sheet for you, and any other sort of training tools you'll need. And we'll also provide you with bags and name tags. So now Casey will come back on and talk to you about the actual logistics of each day.
Thanks, Lainey. So first things first, let's talk about getting to the Hilton Crystal City when you get into DC for Head to the Hill. Please visit our website. There's a travel information link on the main Head to the Hill page that'll give you complete directions and instructions for getting Head to the Hill, whether you're driving, taking the metro, or coming from the airport. But there is a free shuttle from the airport that you can call when you land to pick you up, and it will take you to Hilton Crystal City. But again, make sure you visit that travel information page for complete details so you know what to do when you arrive into DC. There are a couple events on Sunday that you should consider attending. The first is Race for Hope DC. This is one of the biggest events our organization puts on every year, and it's held in Freedom Plaza in downtown Washington, D.C. The 5K route provides great views of our nation's capital, and it's also a great place to make new friends and meet up with friends you see once a year at Head to the Hill. There is a Head to the Hill team that meets at the NBTS info tent on race day. We have been sending links to register, and we'll continue to do that to register for the race. And the Head to the Hill team captains will arrange a meetup at the race. On Sunday evening, we'll host a welcome reception from 5 to 7 p.m. at Hogan Levels in Washington, D.C. And this year, we're fortunate to be joined again by the CERN Foundation and their annual Ependymoma Awareness Day event and butterfly release. And that will be held during our welcome reception. There will be a short program and plenty of time to meet your fellow advocates over hors d'oeuvres and drinks. There will be buses from the Hilton Crystal City starting at 4 p.m. and leaving Hogan Levels back to the Hilton at 7 p.m. So feel free to make your own dinner plans and enjoy the rest of the evening before we jump into training day on Monday. So when you arrive to the Virginia Ballroom at the Hilton Crystal City on Monday morning, NBTS staff will be there to greet you and get you checked in. Registration begins at 7:30. I know some of you early birds will want to arrive earlier than that, but registration won't open until 7:30, so make sure you arrive between 7:30 and 8:15 to check in and eat breakfast before our program begins at 8:30 a.m. And on Monday, training day, breakfast and lunch will be provided during the day. We'll also provide your schedule of meetings on Monday, and it'll be an opportunity for you, the schedule of meetings for Tuesday, the Capitol Hill Day, and it'll be an opportunity for you to ask any questions you might have and meet NBTS staff before Tuesday. And you'll also receive all your participant materials like Lainey mentioned. On Tuesday is the big day. So Tuesday starts bright and early. We have an exciting new addition to our Tuesday schedule. This year, we are lucky enough to have secured space in one of the Senate buildings where we'll hear from our host, Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, and have a great kickoff to our Capitol Hill visits. Breakfast will be served during this kickoff in the Senate building. So instead of eating breakfast like we normally do at the hotel prior to heading to Capitol Hill, we'll load our buses early at 6:45 a.m. and take our group picture at the Capitol steps by 8 a.m. Then we'll drop any belongings off at our home base at the United Methodist Building on our way to the kickoff breakfast. After breakfast, we'll head off with our groups to our congressional meetings. You'll have your schedules as well as maps of the Capitol area, which we will provide on Monday. And lunch will be on your own with your group, and there are cafeterias in both the Senate and House buildings. We'll provide information on that as well on training day on Monday. And you can expect to have at least 3 meetings, 2 with your senators and 1 with your congressman or woman. And you might have more depending on which congressional districts are represented in your group of advocates. So here is a map of the Capitol Hill area. Don't worry about memorizing this or taking a screenshot. We'll provide maps and all of this information again at Head to the Hill. So I took my minimal art skills and drew on this map. And so you can see kind of what to expect on Tuesday morning. So we'll be dropped off at Garfield Circle, which I just highlighted in yellow, and take this route on the south side of the US Capitol to the Capitol steps where we'll take our pictures. I just placed a star on the map. That is where the United Methodist Building is located. And that is kind of our home base. So it's really a great location in the middle of the Capitol Hill where you can put your feet up for a few minutes, grab a snack, store your belongings safely, charge your phone, that sort of thing. And that purple, I'm going to say it's purple diamond that just showed up is in the Dirksen Senate Office Building, and that's where our breakfast will be held. So it's very close and convenient from our United Methodist Building. And most meetings will be held in the morning, will be held in your Senate with your senators. So I just highlighted that in green. Those are our Senate offices. And in the afternoon, just highlighted in blue, those meetings will be scheduled with you and your fellow advocates, representatives at the House of Representatives. So it's not a universal truth that your morning meetings will be in the Senate and afternoon in the House, but it's generally how it works out. A few logistical considerations. There is security at each building, so if you're going outside and have to come back into a building for a meeting, please leave enough time for possible lines at security. However, if you're traveling between buildings on the Senate side or between buildings on the House side, there are tunnels that connect the buildings, so you can avoid having to exit the building and re-enter through another security checkpoint. You can walk between the House and Senate sides, or you can take the between those two, between the House and the Senate, you can either walk or take a shuttle, Capitol Visitor Services shuttle, or a taxi. There will be taxis available all day throughout on the Capitol Hill. If you need directions, you can see members of the Capitol Police Department who will be present in all of the buildings. So always feel free to seek them out and ask for directions if you're unsure. And you'll also see other Head to the Hill advocates. Stop and say hi. It's always fun to see our fellow brain tumor advocates on Capitol Hill. And if you have any questions about your meetings or directions, your fellow advocates might be able to help out too. Another note, meeting schedules can sometimes change up until Tuesday. So prepare to be flexible if a member of Congress has to change your meeting time. Soapbox will provide printouts of any changes on Tuesday morning, and you can always check your mobile tool for a reminder of your meeting schedule. And because your members of Congress and their staffers' availability can be limited, make sure you are on time or a few minutes early, 5 to 10 minutes early to all of your meetings. Soapbox Consulting will provide you with the with the Soapbox phone number, so you can call Soapbox if you're running late or have any scheduling conflicts arise, so they can notify the congressional office. And now I'm going to highlight on this screen the Metro. I just highlighted on the top of the screen Union Station. At the bottom right-hand corner, there's the Capitol South Metro, and then on the bottom left, there's the Federal Center Metro. Once your meetings conclude for the day, you can stop by to the United Methodist Building, the Blue Star, to check in. After that, the event is over and you have finished your day of advocacy. So you can use any of these metro locations that I just highlighted to return to the hotel or head straight to the airport. If you are returning to the hotel, though, we do offer a shuttle service a shuttle bus every 30 minutes from starting at 2:30 and until 6 p.m. departing from Peace Circle. So I just highlighted an orange line of how you could walk from the United Methodist Building to the Peace Circle, and there's the Peace Circle highlighted in orange. So that's a lot of information about how to get around Capitol Hill. But again, we'll go over this on Monday, and we'll always connect you in groups so you're not having to find your way by yourself. So like I said, you'll be teamed up with others from your state or congressional district, and you will meet in those groups on Monday at the training. Before going into your meetings, we want to make sure the group roles are determined and everyone knows what they'll be saying. These will be determined on Monday during our time to practice in states, and we'll provide you a worksheet to help you plan out your meeting roles. We have limited time in each of these meetings and lots to cover, so we can stay focused on our legislative agenda. Just a reminder that NBTS is a nonpartisan organization, and we know that everyone is passionate about politics, and you may even have congressional offices making leading comments, but stick to the issues we'll outline and practice on Monday, training day, so we can make the biggest impact during our limited time and discuss issues that are discussing issues that are outside of our talking points dilutes our message. At the top of the screen, you'll see House and Senate are both in session this year, so that is great news. So we might have more member level meetings than we generally do, but meeting with congressional staff is just as important, as they will do a lot of the legwork, researching the asks that we make, and will make recommendations to the members of Congress. So we want to create a presence at Head to the Hill on Capitol Hill. So everyone that we come in contact with, as well as a larger brain community across the country, knows that you were there on Capitol Hill advocating for them. We'll provide you with t-shirts and other materials that'll show the members and staff that you meet with, as well as anyone you pass in the hallway or in the cafeteria, that the brain tumor community is making their voices heard on Capitol Hill. In addition, make sure to take pictures and videos of your experience so we can spread the word. While NBTS will be sharing footage from the day on social media, we also want to make sure you let everyone back home know about your experience, especially those members of the brain tumor community who are not able to join us in person on Capitol Hill. So share your pictures and experiences on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or you can blog about your experience and encourage others to take part in the Day of Action on May 8th if they can't be in DC. We'll share some more tips with you at our Monday training at Head to the Hill on how to talk about Head to the Hill via social media, but here are a few tips to get started talking about Head to the Hill before you arrive on DC. So use hashtags. This is a great way that social media platforms sort similar topics. These are a few hashtags that the brain tumor community often uses on social media. So hashtag BTSM stands for brain tumor social media, and basically anything you put on social media about the brain tumor community can use that hashtag. BTAM is Brain Tumor Awareness Month, which is every May. And we have our Head to the Hill Capitol Visits Day in May, so it applies as well. We have a Head to Hill, so Head, the number 2, Hill 2018 is our hashtag for this year, and you can always also hashtag brain tumor. People will use that to sort what they see on their social media feeds. And then you can always mention National Brain Tumor Society in your tweets, and that gives a bigger audience as well. So we are NBTS Tweets on Twitter. We're at National Brain Tumor Society on Facebook, and we have the abbreviated national, so NATL Brain Tumor Society on Instagram. So if you haven't already followed or liked us on these platforms, definitely go ahead and do that, and then tag us in your post and use one or all of the hashtags to widen the audience of your post. I just took a screenshot here of a National Brain Tumor Society tweet and another organization that tweeted about Head to the Hill the other day. So they're using a lot of the same hashtags that we use, and mentioning us at NBTS Tweets, so it goes back to the organization. And then we also would like you to before the event, you can tweet your members. You can create that presence before you even get to Capitol Hill, before Head to the Hill begins. So here's a sample tweet I sent out yesterday evening to one of my senators here in Arizona to let him know we're on our way to meet him. I kept my text fairly brief, but covered most of my bases by hashtagging our major hashtags, tagging my senator, tagging NBTS tweets, and you can find, you can find your senator or your representative's Twitter account by doing a Google search, doing an online search, or using a great list that C-SPAN on Twitter has put together that lists all the verified Twitter accounts of your members of Congress. So this creates a presence with your members of Congress and also the brain tumor community to build some momentum as we approach Head to the Hill. And then after your meetings, it's important to thank your members of Congress or staffer for their time and remind them of your requests for support. So we'll hand them a folder with our requests for support, but following up with an email is extremely important. So we'll provide you with a thank you email template, and it's best to find it, we find it best to follow up right away. So it's not, so the meeting is fresh in their mind, and it's in their email inbox as well. So to do that, make sure you get business cards at each meeting so you have that staff person's email address so you can send that thank you note. And then the next step is to fill out a report back form on each meeting you attended. These forms are extremely important in order to plan how we focus our advocacy efforts in the future. We need to know what the office has said about the various issues and conduct any follow-up that's necessary. You can provide those feedback through the Soapbox mobile site while you're on Capitol Hill or back home through Soapbox's website. It's best to do it while it's fresh in your mind, so we suggest completing that feedback form on Tuesday. You can do it at the United Methodist Building between your meetings or while you travel back home. In your group, you can either decide which group member will provide feedback on the meeting or everyone can provide feedback. We do need to make sure every meeting has feedback associated, so make sure that those roles are clearly defined, or everyone can just go ahead and provide feedback. That's fine too. More things to do once you get home from Head to the Hill. We will provide a link for an online evaluation of the event so you can share your experience with us and tell us what you enjoyed, what could be improved in the future, and any thoughts you have about Head to the Hill 2018. And this will help us make this an inspiring and meaningful event for brain tumor advocates who attend in the future. We want to make this an impactful and meaningful event for everyone who attends. We'll also share a template with all of you to submit a letter to the editor in your local newspaper sharing your experience. This will provide a bigger audience to the brain tumor community's advocacy day, and we'll spread the word locally in your community. So the last thing is to stay in touch with congressional offices and keep building that relationship that you started or continue to Head to the Hill. So this will help continue to make positive change for the brain tumor community in the years to come. We've published a handful of educational web trainings on staying in touch with your congressional offices. So we'll link to those webinars too. Make sure you take a little bit of time to build on the great work that you've done here in Washington, D.C. and maintain those relationships throughout the year. Okay, so we're almost to the end of the webinar, but we're asking for one more thing from all of you. Please make sure to get in touch if you have any special considerations we should be aware of, including dietary restrictions or the need for mobility assistance or accessible transportation during the event. But here's what you can do immediately. You can start practicing your story. Like Lainey mentioned, you can learn about your members of Congress by going to those websites that Lisa taught us about, house.gov and senate.gov, and researching your members of Congress. You can read the policy briefs that we'll email to you before Head to the Hill. You can join the Facebook event and tweet to Congress. So the Facebook event page is a really great way to connect with other attendees from your state or across the US, and plan for the event and get to know each other a little bit before you arrive in DC. And then register for Race for Hope DC. A lot of people fly in early to attend Race for Hope DC on Sunday morning. So consider registering for that event as well. Okay, so it is time for questions. We have about 7 minutes left before the top of the hour, but let's see if we have any questions that have come in during this presentation. Lainey?
No questions yet. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to chat them in the chat window now. Lisa did also just send links to the House.gov and Senate.gov pages there as well, if you want to check that out.
Thanks, Lisa. We'll make sure we include all that, the information that we talked about today during today's webinar in our follow-up email, where we'll send the recording of this as well as everything that we talked about linking to. I see someone raise their hand, but unfortunately, if we can use the chat feature to ask your question, that would be great. So I'm seeing a question come in. Lainey, I hope you don't mind if I just read it. Is it a problem if I stay at a different hotel but near the Hilton? That's not a problem. We recommend staying at the Hilton just because we have our training day there on Monday, and that's where the buses depart from to the welcome reception and to Tuesday on Capitol Hill. So it's the easiest option, but it's not the only one. There are a handful of hotels nearby. So if you can easily make it to the Hilton Crystal City to catch those buses and attend the training, that's fine. Okay, it's looking pretty silent. If there are any questions, you can email me at advocacy@braintumor.org or call either of these phone numbers. They both lead to my mobile number, which is the 406 one. So that's the one I dial from. And so that's what you'll see if I call you back, but either number is fine. I'm seeing one more question. So if I didn't sign up for Sunday night, can I change to it now? That's fine. I can mark your record as attending Sunday night. I think that's a great thing to do. Sunday night is such a great event to get to know and reacquaint yourself with your other advocates, and also attend the butterfly release, which is just a really special event where you can release a butterfly in memory or honor of someone. And it's just it'll be a great evening. So Mike, I will make that note in your registration now. And that's a good reminder, if anyone does have any changes to make to their registrations, if you need to register somebody else or have a new special consideration or have any questions, just reach out. We're happy to be flexible and welcome any emails or phone calls to make changes now. Okay, thanks everyone for a great webinar. I hope this was helpful, and feel free again to contact us anytime. We're happy to answer any questions, and we'll be connecting returning Head to the Hill mentors with folks who are new this year. If you signed up to be mentored, we will be making those connections so you can get acquainted before Head to the Hill. And we'll see you in May. Thanks.